For the much anticipated fireside chat, we're honored to have Dr. Chi-Hong Lin as our moderator. Dr. Lin currently serves as the president of National Yangming Chiaodong University. He has a PhD in cell biology from Yale University, and his research interests focus on cancer biology and is an expert on cell tissue microscopy. In 2010, he was appointed the Health Commissioner of Taipei City Government and subsequently also new Taipei City Government, earning him 8 years of experience in public health policies and their implementations. Please put your hands together and welcome Dr. Chi-Hong Lin to the stage. Also joining in the fireside chat is Mr. Mark Chen. Mr. Chen is the head of Frontiers Research at OpenAI, and where he focuses on multimodal and reasoning research. He led the team that created DALL-E 2 and the team that incorporated visual perception into GPT-4. Prior to joining OpenAI, Mark worked as a quantitative trader at several proprietary trading firms, including Jane Street Capital, where he built machine learning algorithms for equities and futures trading. His parents are Taiwanese and have spent his high school years in Taiwan, actually, and later graduated from MIT with a bachelor's degree in mathematics and computer science. So give a round of applause to one of our very own favorite son of Taiwan, Mr. Mark Chen. And our main speaker for the fireside chat, I'm sure, is no stranger to anyone here. Mr. Sam Altman is the CEO of OpenAI and chairman of Helion Energy. He has become known as the man behind the AI revolution and a legend in Silicon Valley despite his young 38 years of age. His vision to make the most cost of energy and intelligence fall to near zero as a way to create abundance and accessible for all. He is also the chairman of WorldCoin, a global UBI experiment, and Retro, a partial reprogramming longevity company. He was formerly the president of Y Combinator, where he expanded the scope of the program and mentored thousands of founders of many of the most successful startups of the last decade. As you can see, his influence on the world is no joke. So let's give us a round of applause to the favorite son of the world, Mr. Sam Altman.
Thank you, Shirley. And now over to our moderator, Professor Lin. 接下来把时间交给主持人林奇宏校长。
Okay, Mark and Sam, welcome to Taiwan.
Thank you.
I know that you swing by Taiwan and you're going to stay for less than a day. So thank you very much.
Very happy to be here.
So did the previous talk feels like back to the classroom again?
Yeah, Andrew was my professor when I was an undergrad, so it does bring it back.
Okay, great. So in the next 25 minutes, I think I will go through the topics that the audience, both in this room and online, will be very interested in, which is what's your keys to succeed and your areas to implement and to apply, and ways to sustain and things to worry about. So maybe we should follow that order. But before I begin, you want to say a few words to the audience? Just say hello and how many times have you been in Taiwan?
Sure. Hello. This is my third time to Taiwan, and I wish I had a longer one. This is a very short visit, but it's been a great day so far. I think the AI revolution is going to be a massively transformative and positively transformative thing. Humans, through every technological revolution, have always worried about what the jobs are going to be like and what we're all going to have to do. And it turns out that human desire for new things and creativity is pretty limitless. And so we're going to find wonderful things to do. And what we're seeing with ChatGPT is people just use these AI tools to do more and do better, and they can take their ideas and bring them to life even faster. And it very much is an amplifier of human ingenuity and will, and I think it's although always a little scary when the ground shakes, where we're headed is just probably much better than any of us can imagine. We will all have tons to do, and we'll look back at this time as a sort of very barbaric age, and we won't believe how much better it's gotten. I think the rate of change will be fast. I don't think AGI is decades away, although it mostly depends on how fast Mark's team makes progress. But I think it'll be pretty quick. And each year, more amazing things will be possible that weren't possible the year before. And that's also true even if we look backwards. Most of the world, I think, didn't predict ChatGPT a year or 3 years ago. And I think that will remain true. But I think we're on to something pretty deep and fundamental, and it'll be great.
Yeah. Sure. Hey, everyone. I'm Mark. It's nice to be back in Taiwan. I haven't been here in 4 or 5 years, but it still feels like home. So glad to be back. Like Sam said, AI is bringing about a lot of change, but maybe one unifying characteristic of people who work at OpenAI is they're more optimistic than pessimistic about the future of AI. And while we care about safety a lot, we really think it'll bring about a better future.
Okay, thank you. So first, keys to succeed, I'll let you just say whatever you want to say. But I realized that you just are in the process of a world trip. So what's your main takeaway from this trip, and what you expected? Is there any critical feedback that you want to share with us?
Yeah, so Mark and I traveled together earlier this year in this crazy trip around the world, which was incredibly gratifying, tiring, but really amazing to see how throughout many countries, 6 continents, many, many cities, the enthusiasm about AI, the belief that the future is going to be much better, and more than that, what people were already doing today. GPT-4 and ChatGPT as it is today, when we look back at it, we're already embarrassed by it. Everybody's going to be embarrassed. When you got that first iPhone, you thought it was really cool, but now if you look back at it, those pixels are each this big and just didn't hold up that well. But it still pointed to something amazing, and now we have these supercomputers in our pockets. Even in that iPhone 1 era that we're in now, seeing the creativity of people around the world, the enthusiasm for where it's going to go, the businesses people are building, the way they're transforming their workflows, that was all amazing. It was interesting to see how different things are in different cultures in different ways, but the enthusiasm was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, not too much to add to that. It's just we went from place to place, and developers were coming to us with a wide diversity of apps, and I think they're really far ahead of the curve from what we had expected.
Yeah, that's good to know. So it seems that opportunities are everywhere, right? So based on whatever infrastructure and platform you have built, yeah. So that moves to my next question, which is the areas to apply. And also, I think very importantly, if it is a platform like the electricity that Professor Ng mentioned about, specifically in what area that you think will be nourished in the next decades. And I know that OpenAI, you started with a NPO, but now you are a profit-making company, just a regular company. So what you point yourself, on these 2 roles, please?
You want to do new areas and I'll do company
structure? Sure, yeah. Which direction that we want to take OpenAI?
Or kind of what areas are we most excited about for people to build on?
Yeah. So, I have to plug the areas that I personally research. So I focus on multimodal and reasoning research. And I really think that these are the 2 most promising directions going forward. First, with multimodal, right? We want our models to access what we see, what we hear, and to be able to generate novel content, that we couldn't generate ourselves. And I think this will really unlock a bunch of new interfaces for the model. And on reasoning, today the model still makes silly mistakes here and there, right? And we really want to get to the point where, in order for the model to be truly assistive and robust, that it doesn't make these mistakes anymore and can really be kind of a sparring partner for ideas.
Yeah, I just want to underscore how big of a deal it is if we get reasoning to work. GPT-4 can reason the tiniest bit some of the time, but it clearly is not doing what we do, even what a child can do. And GPT-4, although it can do a very good job mimicking what humans have done, doesn't feel like it's going to go like invent new science. And if we can teach these models to reason, then I think we can contribute to the sum total of human knowledge, and that's when the world will really transform. If we can make more scientific progress in 1 year with these tools than we could in 100 without them, the quality of life will go up for all of us so much. Some areas that I'm particularly excited about are education, healthcare, personal productivity tools like what we see people do using these coding tools. That's been amazing. I think those will all be great. And then on the company structure side, so we started as a nonprofit. We knew that training these systems were going to be expensive, but we had no idea how expensive. And when it became clear to us that we were eventually going to have to spend hundreds of billions of dollars on building out infrastructure if we wanted to get to our goal, we knew that the nonprofit structure we started with wasn't quite going to work, but the reasons that we started with the nonprofit structure were still super important. We wanted to get the incentives right. We wanted a way to sort of return the benefits and the governance of this technology to society as a whole. Wouldn't make sense for like one company to own electricity. If we were successful enough to invent AGI, it wouldn't make sense for one company, I think, to control that either. And so we came up with this idea of a capped profit. We have a nonprofit that governs us. We have a capped profit to still let capitalism do its magic for our investors and our team. But then beyond that, the nonprofit gets the excess.
Yeah, okay. That move to my third question is what's the way to sustain? I know that the computation costs a lot, and so people have been worrying about the energy consumption. And I also read upon one of your wish list in what you want to do next is to reduce the cost of energy and intelligence to near zero. So, what's the way to, make such kind of AI and the future development sustainable, both from the energy perspective and from the population of people's perception view? Yeah.
Fusion. And if that doesn't work, then solar. The energy needs as we look out are enormous. I think the cost of intelligence over time should trend towards the cost of energy. And there's going to be huge demand for intelligence, and thus huge demand for energy. And if we can create abundant, cheap, clean, safe energy, and again, I think we're going to have this very soon with fusion at massive scale, like the scale that you need for everybody on Earth to get to enjoy the fruits of AGI. That's our plan.
Okay. Mark, you want to add something?
He's the energy guy. I can't add anything.
All right. Good. And then, of course, the risk, things to worry. Okay. So, is there any real things that we should be worried about, or there's just none?
I'll go first. You can add. Look, things are going to go wrong. Things go wrong with every new technology. One thing that we think is important is to make our mistakes, not just OpenAI, but society's collective mistakes, while the stakes are low. So we believe in deploying the technology iteratively. We put these tools out in the world. We see how people use them and abuse them in ways we didn't think about. And every time we put out a new system, we want it to get better and better. So GPT-3 had many flaws. GPT-4 has less flaws. GPT-N will have even less. And the way that systems get safer and the way that we collectively as society get to steer them is this iterative process of using them in the real world, seeing what breaks, fixing that, using them a little more, making them a little better, a little more powerful, and that'll keep going. So I agree with what Andrew said. I think we have, as a society, successfully confronted very risky technologies and very powerful systems, institutions before, and we'll do that again. But it doesn't mean that things won't go wrong along the way. It doesn't mean there will be no disruption. Things will go wrong. There will be disruption. And that's part of why we think it's so important to give people in our institutions time to gradually adapt. And what some people in the field advocate for of basically build AGI in secret and then push the button one day, we think would be quite bad.
Yeah, if, like the last 5 years of safety research has taught us anything, it's that you really can't do safety research in a vacuum, right? The things that people were predicting that may be unsafe, some of those didn't turn out, right? And you really need this deployment process to have your AI be grounded in the world and then see how people use it. And I think this also underscores why international cooperation is important here. We're here because we want to understand the norms, what's safe for one geography may not be safe for another. And we think this is not just a US kind of problem to solve.
Yeah, that's really important. We have come together as a globe several times before. The IAEA for atomic energy is an example that we point to. There's several others. I think this is going to require another one of those because this is a technology that does have such global impact. And figuring out how we get the collective preferences of the world and make these decisions together, that's going to be super important.
Yeah. Do you worry about biased database or misinformation? Some of them are actually, could be really contaminated on purpose. So, do you have any thought about those?
You want to go first?
Sure, yeah. Of course, yeah, we worry a lot about bias. And I think this goes back to the point of, figuring out what the different geographies define as bias, because it really varies from place to place. And, misinformation, people will put incorrect content out there. Our model is trained to predict content on the internet. So there are mitigations we have to do after training to make sure that we reduce as much as possible the scope of misinformation regurgitation.
No two people on Earth will probably ever agree that one system is unbiased. And so one of the things that we think is really important is that we can make systems perform reliably, that society as a whole agrees on what the wide bounds are, and then in different contexts, different cultures, different subgroups, different individuals, there's a lot of ability to get the system to behave in a particular way. And that ability has worked far better than people have thought. So it's certainly true that if you just train a model on the raw internet, you're going to get something that most reasonable people would call biased in different ways. But with techniques that we and others have developed, like reinforcement learning from human feedback and a whole bunch of other things, you can surprisingly steer these models. And so you can kind of configure it how you want. OpenAI makes some decisions, but you can change it a lot. And this idea of empowering individuals, but setting the edges and also the sort of standard behavior well, I think is really important. And again, this has surprised even the experts in bias. They've said this just works way better than they thought. GPT-4 out of the box is like less biased than a human expert in these topics. And the configurability per user is pretty doable. Now, on the question of misinformation, that's a really hard one. It's hard to define that. It's hard to agree on it. I again come to this thing of the metric should be reliability. Like if you ask the model to follow a certain set of like ground truth facts, can it do that well? And I think a lot of Mark's team's work will turn out to be very important for that.
Yeah, people also worry about technology, especially high tech, will cause inequality or inequity for the society. So do you think the generated AI will worsen or maybe?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I think in general, technology is a force for equalizing. And if the common example everybody uses is a very poor person and the richest person in the world get the same iPhone. Mm-hmm. And that's not been, things like that have not been true throughout history. But if you think about a tool like AI, if everybody on Earth can get access to the best tutoring system ever, the best medical care ever, that helps everybody. But that relatively helps poorer people more than richer people who can already pay a lot for intelligence. Same thing with energy. This is like really true throughout history. If you study the decrease in the price of energy over time, that has always helped the poorest half of the world more than the richest half. So I think technology does this in general. AI will be a super strong force for it.
Okay. Now,
There was a but.
Please.
The but is that all is only true if society makes the right decisions. You could certainly imagine a world where all of the compute power in the world belongs to one company or one small set of people. And in that case, it won't be such an equalizing force. But I don't think society is going to let that happen.
Okay. So do you worry about over-regulation by the authority or governments?
Not that much. I mean, it certainly could happen. I also worry about under-regulation. I think this is... People in our industry bash regulation a lot. You know, it's like hard... We've been calling for sort of regulation, but only of the most powerful systems. We say, you know, let the small models go, let open source go. Models that are like 10,000 times the power of GPT-4, you know, models that are like as smart as human civilization, whatever, like those probably deserve some regulation. It seemed to me like the least controversial thing I was going to say this year, and I got completely, still am, getting bashed for it by the tech industry. And there's this reflexive anti-regulation thing. But regulation has been not a pure good, but it's been good in a lot of ways. You know, I don't want to have to like make an opinion about every time I step on an airplane how safe it's going to be. But I trust that they're pretty safe. And I think regulation has been like a positive good there. Same thing for medicines or whatever. So it's possible to get regulation wrong, but I don't think we sit around and fear it. In fact, we think some version of it's important.
Okay. You don't worry about it, Mark?
Well, on regulation, I think Sam said a lot, but just kind of going back to inequity, whether AI causes more inequity, I think there's two examples that come to mind. First, code generation. You know, code generation helps people who are, you know, learning to code or just kind of beginning at coding much more than it helps an expert who kind of already knows the language. And another thing, like diagnosis, right? Like, we've already seen examples of people who don't have access to medical care kind of type their symptoms into ChatGPT and sometimes come up with diagnoses that explain, you know, their symptoms. And that's not something that maybe someone with the access to the best doctors will need to worry about.
Okay. Usually I don't ask the following question to the people like your ages, but I'm very interested in asking, do you have any words to our next generation?
Well, yeah, I think you know, it's important to work really hard and have conviction, right? I think these are two of the qualities that have really made OpenAI succeed. And conviction is really important. Like, you're not going to build AGI if you don't believe that it's possible. And I think from the very beginning, we've believed that it was possible. And I think that was one of the biggest strengths. You know, everyone else in the industry was saying, you know, hey, scaling is not the right route here. You can't do it. And we just kind of had that conviction and that optimism. And of course, you do have to work hard. Yeah.
I think there has not been a luckier generation than the generation coming of age right now, like probably in all of human history. The tools, the sort of like wide open field of possibilities, the chance to sort of do anything that in a way that was just not possible before. There's this fundamental new force in the world, and this is the like coming decade where the key elements the key directions will be set. And kind of along with what Mark was saying, the lesson that I wish I had learned earlier in my life, but I now deeply believe, is you can just do stuff. Like, you can just start a company trying to build AGI. A lot of people will tell you that's like a really dumb thing to do. They'll say it in even meaner ways than that, but you can still just do it. And this is like a very powerful thing to like deeply internalize.
Okay, well, Mark, I think you want to elaborate a little bit more on that because you have experienced Taiwan's education system, Hsinchu 实验高中 graduate. So, you know, think back. So, what's a comparison between the education, elementary education you have received in Taiwan versus what you have received in the States?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I guess, I mean, I feel like I also had it very lucky because, you know, the American education system, it's a little bit more relaxed, right? It gives you kind of the room to explore your interests. But I was a pretty undisciplined kid coming into Taiwan. I think Taiwan really did teach me, like, hey, you really have to focus, you have to be disciplined. So I think I really got the best of both worlds here.
Yeah, you are traditionally defined 坏学生, bad students, right?
Oh, sorry?
Kind of thing. You are one of the 坏学生, bad students. Yeah, by that regard.
I have a story about Mark. Mark is one of like the most loved managers at OpenAI, which is a very rare. I mean, not all managers at OpenAI are loved. Mark also hadn't like done much research-based stuff before OpenAI. And when Mark took on managing the team, which also is probably the team of people that are the most difficult to manage in all of OpenAI, he was like, I'm going to learn to be a manager, and just started reading books and started talking to people. And it was just like, and like threw himself into this, like, I'm going to go learn a totally new thing and get really good at it, which almost no one does in their career beyond a certain point. Most people are just like, yeah, I'll figure it out as I go. Like, it can't be that hard, whatever. But the spirit of like the discipline to really study something hard when it's a new thing in any phase in your life, even if it's a category very different than stuff you've done before, I think pays off hugely.
Okay, we've got about 90 seconds left. Any words you want to share with the audience?
On any topic?
Any topic.
Does someone want to yell one out and we'll respond? That's not going to work. Okay. Yes. How do you create a product or service to be localized without restricting its potential? The proper guardrails? Oh, so one of the things that I think, that's a great question, thank you. One of the things that I think is so surprising about this kind of technology relative to what people thought, and Andrew mentioned this earlier, is if you just prompt the models, if you just tell it how you want it to behave, it can do a pretty good job. And that ability, I think, is going to get better fast. So as we look to future versions of GPTs, the ability to control the models and get reliable behavior, to localize it, to have it follow what you want, you'll really just say in natural language, here's what I want you to do, and it'll do it. And speaking of equalizing forces, the fact that you get to just like tell the computer what you want in natural language, which everyone knows how to do, and it will do it, is this amazing new thing. So it works a little bit with GPT-4. It'll work much better with future models. But we're heading to this world where it's like the Star Trek computer. And you just say, this is what I want, and the thing happens. And for all questions like that, how do I get it to do this? How do I get it to do that? The answer is, you just tell it, and it'll do it. And I think that's going to be a very, to all of us, that's going to feel like a very new thing. Kids that are growing up now will expect it, but that'll be how we deal with computers.
Yeah, I want to borrow your words to finish this sector, which is to potentiate the benefit and to mitigate the risk. Thank you both very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much to Professor Lin.